Actually, when you were talking about energy there, it got me thinking about this other point that's sort of related. I'll just swap the screen again. Um, well, actually, let me set this up first. There's this idea in cryptography about like um, how secure is your data if you encrypt it, and there's all kinds of different encryption algorithms, um, and obviously cryptography has been just a gigantic field, especially in the 20th century. The one that stands out, of course, is in World War II, trying to break the Enigma machine, and you have Alan Turing in Bletchley Park, and that's sort of where the modern computer ultimately traces its roots to. Um, and we even still today, Turing's name is synonymous with computer programming and evaluating the sort of efficacy of a programming language, and we refer to it as whether or not it is Turing complete.
Right.
Just a huge force in computer science. But anyway, when you think about modern cryptography, obviously security is a big thing on people's minds. How do you be safe on the internet? How do you keep your information safe? And I was talking about this this week actually with someone, and nobody wants their data compromised, but it's almost I struggle to say that it's uniquely a problem that has to do with like poor data management. But the encryption algorithms that we have today are so advanced that it's literally not possible to brute force them. Meaning, you just keep trying different passwords effectively, to break the encryption to solve it. Um, and so if you have like a weak, I don't know if you're listening to this and you don't have a good grasp on cryptography or how this stuff works, if you have a weak password, it's easy enough to consider somebody just typing in random characters and eventually they'll sort of guess it, right? Um, but I just want to bring up this article because I find it very interesting. This is just on Stack Overflow, which is like the computer programmer's manual in some ways. Has all kinds of posts and stuff on it, and it's talking about approaching cryptography from a thermodynamic point of view. And this guy is citing this book, Applied Cryptography, by this guy Bruce Schneider, and the physics are whatever, but essentially what he's saying is if you're looking at like a modern 256-bit cipher, um, there's literally not enough energy that the sun gives off in 32 years for us to brute force these algorithms. Um, Assuming, and this assumes all kinds of crazy things, like you can build a Dyson sphere around the sun and literally capture all the energy it produces. But on like a at the level of how the physics interact, like you can't switch the bits enough. Like switching a bit on a computer takes some amount of energy, and there basically isn't enough energy in our within our part of the universe for us to to brute force these algorithms, which is just mind blowing. It tells you how intense cryptography has gotten. And so my what I was suggesting in this conversation that I was having was that it's not that our cryptography is unsafe or that the technology doesn't work. It's that our data gets compromised by other attack vectors like social
Right.
engineering. Like somebody sends you an email link and you click on it and they slip a backdoor into your computer somehow, or you have a weak password. Or the other side, of course, is you using a company that has does not protect your data properly. So, like, I think even the huge Equifax breach of a few years back, in some sub part of their system, they were literally storing plain text passwords, um, which means they know what your password is, and if their database is compromised, the attacker literally can steal all those passwords. And so it's things like that. It's almost like the social side of hacking, I guess, um, that compromises our data most of the time now. And something like this, like we like AES is one of the most popular encryption algorithms, and AES 256 is considered completely secure. But there's even more than that. Like you can use AES 512, which is double the amount of bits, but it's considered overkill because of stuff like this. So there's already not enough energy in the universe, literally, at least from our sun, to break the encryption. I don't know. It's just interesting how energy interacts with our modern day life, especially when you get into weird sub parts of life like cryptography, which is just its own world. But this is I've referenced this post a number of times over the past few years, and this goes back to 2011. I think the book he's referencing is even older than that. I don't know. Have you ever encountered this idea?
Yeah, sure. Not those specific figures with the Dyson sphere and everything. That's pretty interesting. But yeah, the idea of cryptography, and I took like it's like Comp TIA Security Plus or whatever, and went through that type of stuff. And also it traced like different encryption algorithms and how ones that used to be thought of as secure are now like easily hackable. Like
Sure.
I forget if it's like WEP or whatever it is that they used to use to encrypt Wi-Fi connections is like no longer, like, so like he like broke through it. The instructor broke through it in the lecture using, whatever it was on Kali Linux. So, but something that's interesting is what role quantum computing will play on this, and like if these algorithms that are infeasible to crack using classical computing, if quantum computing will make them like negligible, and then we'll need some new kind of algorithm to to protect against that.
Yeah, quantum computing is like that sort of elephant in the room that I don't think. I mean, even like me as I guess I work in computer science. It's my profession, and I feel like I have no clue how quantum computing works. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just crazy. And I think the last thing that he says in here is that brute force attacks are infeasible until computers are built from something other than matter and occupy something other than space, which is a really elegant way to sum it up. But quantum computing, I mean, maybe it breaks that mold in some way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because a lot of these algorithms are built on like factoring primes or whatever, right? And apparently for quantum computers, they're much more efficient at that. So
Yeah.
it probably depends on the algorithm and what computation is is necessary for it. But from what it sounds like is using like superpositioning and whatnot, quantum computers can try a ton of different possible solutions simultaneously and converge on a working solution much faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting over the next 10 plus years, maybe, to see what role quantum computing starts to emerge into. And I guess, I don't know, like how much it gets adopted, and how far they're able to push that technology. It could shake up any number of areas in computing. But I sort of have to. I'm leaving that to the to the real computer scientists, I suppose. I'll stick to my web development for now.